We're following breaking news as the Los Angeles mayor's office and the California governor's office both confirm that actor and director Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle have died in what has been described as a tragic event. Although Rob and I do not see eye to eye on certain matters, hearing that this happened to him, I genuinely feel a deep sense of regret. There were pictures or something like that, though I can't remember exactly what it was at the time, as I was having a small attack. When asked what to say to the critics, especially since he had made a joke about it himself, these words were said to have appeared in a short post titled Clint Eastwood on the X platform not long ago, before disappearing after only a few dozen minutes, as if they had never existed at all. This was because the statement stood in complete contrast to the image Eastwood has maintained for more than half a century, a silent icon of Hollywood so private that he has rarely expressed personal emotions and has certainly never left behind such heavy or emotionally charged remarks on social media, especially at the age of 95. Shortly afterward, public attention swiftly shifted and converged on Rob Reiner as, almost at the same time, shocking reports emerged that he and his wife had been found dead in their private residence, causing layers of suspicion to overlap and making it difficult to determine what was mere coincidence and what might carry deeper implications. The fact that the name Rob Reiner became the focal point was far from accidental, because for a long time he and Clint Eastwood have been regarded as two directors and producers who embody nearly completely opposing filmmaking philosophies within Hollywood, both in their methods of working and in their fundamental ways of viewing the world. According to what Clint Eastwood has shared in many private conversations with journalists close to him over more than 2 decades, the conflict between him and Rob Reiner did not begin with politics or with shocking public statements, but rather stemmed from a very fundamental question of the directing profession itself. Should a director step back to observe or step in deeply in order to control? Eastwood said that he began to recognize this divide clearly in the early 2000s when the two of them were frequently placed side by side in film analysis programs on PBS and in a series of long-form articles published by the Los Angeles Times about the power of the director in modern Hollywood, where Rob Reiner was portrayed as the type of director who is constantly present at the center of the set, outspoken, heavily involved, and actively guiding the emotions of the entire crew, while Eastwood, by contrast, was seen as someone who exercised control through silence, through a steady working rhythm, and through an almost absolute trust in his actors. And it was precisely this kind of comparison that made him realize that the two of them were not merely different in style, but fundamentally different in how they understood the very nature of film. This approach was demonstrated very clearly during the period when Eastwood was making Mystic River in Boston in 2002, when he maintained a working schedule that was almost rigid in its discipline and so minimalist that it surprised many people on the crew, keeping collective script read-throughs to an absolute minimum and almost never organizing long discussions before shooting a scene because he believed that actors had already prepared sufficiently before stepping onto the set. One crew member once told the Boston Globe that Eastwood would often stand a few meters away from the camera, watching every movement very closely, yet rarely intervening in the acting process. And when a take ended, he would simply nod, signal to move on to the next setup, or quietly walk to another position without delivering lengthy analyses or explanations. This viewpoint was stated plainly by Eastwood in an interview with the American Film Institute in 2006, when he admitted that he disliked directors standing right behind actors and whispering instructions because, in his view, such behavior disrupts concentration and gradually turns performances into something calculated and unnatural. On the opposite side, Rob Reiner was well known for a working style that was almost completely the reverse, and during the making of The Story of Us in New York in 1998, numerous articles in Entertainment Weekly and New York Magazine described how Reiner would frequently ask the entire crew to stop so they could delve deeply into each scene, each line of dialogue, and even the pauses between spoken lines, encouraging actors to share their personal emotions, including experiences not directly related to the script, believing that this kind of psychological connection would ultimately seep into what appeared on screen. Eastwood, when recalling this approach in a behind-the-scenes conversation with journalist Kim Masters in 2012, said that he did not believe prolonging discussions would make a scene better because, as he put it, when emotions are analyzed too thoroughly, they stop being emotions and instead become an idea of emotion. This contrast became increasingly evident as other filmmakers and actors began to voice their views publicly, with Sean Penn, who had worked with Eastwood on Mystic River, telling The Guardian that he greatly appreciated the fact that Eastwood did not impose performances, instead requiring actors to take full responsibility for their own choices. While many actors who had collaborated with Rob Reiner praised him for his patience, his ability to listen, and for creating a psychologically safe environment on set, and from that point on the tension between Eastwood and Reiner was no longer merely a personal matter, but came to represent two opposing schools of film, one placing its faith in instinct and discipline, and the other believing in dialogue and the cultivation of emotion. Eastwood also revealed an additional detail that has rarely been mentioned, explaining that around 2004 there was once a major drama project proposed for him and Rob Reiner to co-produce together. But the project quickly reached a deadlock as early as the pre-production stage when the two sides were unable to agree on how the film crew should be run, with Eastwood wanting a short shooting schedule, minimal interference, and maximum authority given to the actors, while Reiner's camp proposed multiple script read-throughs, collective discussions, and an extended preparation period, leading to the project being shelved without any official announcement and later becoming a behind-the-scenes story passed around within the industry as a textbook example of a clash in creative philosophy. Clint Eastwood once summed up his entire viewpoint in a single sentence shared during a conversation with Esquire in 2012, saying that he believed a director does their job best when they do not get in the way of the actors, a statement many people saw as an indirect rebuttal aimed at directors who intervened too deeply in performances, among whom Reiner was often included. From this fundamental difference, Eastwood's subsequent criticisms of Rob Reiner regarding his increasing tendency to inject personal viewpoints and moral messages into his films began to take clearer shape, opening up a broader conflict that extended beyond filmmaking methods to encompass how the two men perceive the role of cinema within social life itself.